Like the mouth, the moon, and the soil in the earth, breaking through the rocks, growing wild and tall till the buds begin to pop. So pack me in a bowl or roll me in a spliff. While you're breaking me down, you can feel your fingers stick.
Hey, this is Ryan Herron from Portland, Oregon, and I'm here today with
Amanda Breeze, and I'm in Toronto.
And we're here today to talk about all the fun stuff around one of our favorite plants, cannabis. And today, especially, we're talking about a project that is, near and dear to our hearts. We've been working on it for quite a while. It's the Cannabis Aroma Wheel.
Boom!
Yes, debuted and launched. So, Amanda, why don't you tell everyone kind of what that is? Give them like the bird's eye view of what we're talking about today.
Okay, so Ryan and I have been working on this project for probably like a year. This started out of our mutual love of weed smells, as I'm sure most of you have figured out by now listening to the podcast. And it has evolved into this amazing, comprehensive sommelier level tool, the likes of which the world has never seen. I am so freaking excited that the time is finally here and we get to talk about it. And it's really real. It's really happening.
Yeah, very excited to work on this for a long time. It was something that has been entirely missing from the industry, since we've started talking about it and thinking seriously about what makes good weed. So it was one of those things where it was like, we better step up and do a really nice job of this before someone else does, because it's only a matter of time before someone puts together a comprehensive wheel of cannabis aromas. And I think we just knocked it out of the park. I mean, we thought so much about this. It wasn't something where we just said, okay, linalool is also in lavender, so put lavender on the wheel. I mean, why don't we just dig into why wheels are necessary, and then we can talk about how we went about constructing this.
True. Well, I'd actually like to, reveal the mystery of what it is, because we're sitting here looking at it, but y'all are hearing this with your ears. So what we've done is sit down and came up with, I think, 126 unique scent notes found in cannabis. And we arranged them in two different ways. So they're arranged by their generic categories, which would be like if something you smell is citrusy, if it's fruity, earthy, sweet, or gassy. So those are just like your base aromatics. And then it expands into categories. And we're going to get more into that throughout the podcast. And then it expands into these scent notes. So what we're looking at right now is a literal wheel of smells broken down in a way that is so digestible and easy to use for cannabis smell freaks like ourselves. And, you said it, down the line, someone would have done it, but no one would have done it as good as us, because we agonized over these 126 smells. And I mean, agonized.
Yes, and the order of them. And, we probably started with a list of over 200 individual aromas that we pared down to what was absolutely necessary.
Yes.
So, hey, if you are listening to this and you're a visual person, you can go and navigate over to Centelligenceproject.com right now and get a quick view of the wheel. The website officially launches on March 24th. So if you're before that, you're likely getting a little preview. Some copy and images might change. But I know that I would be pulling my hair out if I couldn't actually at least get a glance at this thing.
Yeah,
So
it is.
Go there, check it out.
So stunning too. It is just like visual. I am so proud of this project. This is just like, it just feels like a culmination of my freaking life's work. Like everything we've been working on has come to this moment. I am so proud of what we've accomplished here. So part of the reason we invented this wheel is sort of actually goes back to when me and Ryan first met and started to become smell friends, because we did an episode on Ryan's previous podcast, The Loud 100, and we talked about this in great detail. And it's the science of smell and the science of human smell. And the thing is, humans are really good at smelling, but really bad at, one, smelling things out of context, and two, being able to identify those smells, even if they're really, really familiar. And that leads to struggling to describe the smell. And so we went into a great deal about the tip of the nose phenomenon and how you can smell something and it's so familiar, but you just can't find the right word to describe it. And this is really at its core the hardest part of being a connoisseur or a canna-sommelier or someone who just enjoys smoking weed and enjoys talking about weed. This is the greatest struggle that we all have, because we're being forced to identify familiar smells completely out of context, because we're looking at a green leafy thing and our brain is trying to say, what is that? It smells fruity, but what fruit? Because it doesn't look like a grape. It doesn't look like black pepper. It doesn't look like, a rose. So what is this thing? And how do I figure out that exact word, that exact scent note to describe the thing that I'm smelling? And that's why these generic categories have really emerged in the cannabis space, where people do use terms like fruity or earthy to describe the cannabis that they're smoking or smelling, because our nose can't quite pinpoint exactly what it is.
Right.
But you can train your nose to do this, and you can practice using tools like an aroma wheel. And that is how it all began. So this is a science-based tool. It really is a tool to help people talk about the weed that they're smoking.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to convey what a Kush scent smells like to someone who has not smoked 100 different varieties of cannabis. So if, let's just say, a grandma comes into the dispensary and wants something, and the bud tender is trying to describe something with a cushy note to them, as I heard just yesterday at the dispensary, the person was just absolutely confused by that, because that's not a frame of reference they have.
That is a really good point. I would also throw in, for me, well, people say, what kind of strains do you like? And I usually say blues.
Mm-hmm.
Because blues is like, the blue family, the blue dream, the blue cookies. I like that berry. I like that fruity flavor. But blue is not a smell.
Right, exactly. It's so hard to describe to somebody who hasn't had their nose in a pound of purple Urkel and knows that's kind of like the purpley smells that we talk about.
Yeah.
So this is a really great communication tool, especially for the uninitiated, who can come in and you can say, oh, do you like something that smells more gassy or more citrusy? Oh, you do like citrus. Great. I can get these jars down. Can you detect grapefruit in this one? You can. Oh, okay, great. That person has gone 100 steps from if they had just walked into the dispensary and someone put something that smelled maybe vaguely like a grapefruit in front of their nose.
Yes. And, I feel like, again, all of these episodes that we've recorded over the past, almost year have been really leading up to this in the examples that we've been using throughout this whole season, where it's like, I like fruity, I like citrus, I don't like pineapple. So if a strain is being marketed to me as fruity citrus, I would think that I would just immediately love it. But if it turns out it's a pineapple flavor, I know I'm going to not like that and I'm going to be disappointed. So this wheel pinpoints those aromatics in a way that everyone can understand. So the scent notes that we're describing are just very specific aromatics, very specific fruits. So instead of saying, I'll look to the berry category for this one,
Yeah,
but we could say, okay, it's fruity. We could take the next step and say it's berry, but then we take it to the next step. So in our berry category of the wheel, we have blue raspberry, strawberry, blackberry, regular raspberry, blueberry, and plum, and also grape. Now, grape is not a berry, but a smell of a grape is a berry scent. So even though this isn't a fruit wheel, this is a smell wheel. So we've put things in categories where we think they belong due to their specific aromatic note.
Yeah, especially as related to cannabis. This is how connoisseurs talk about cannabis. We say, oh, this smells gassy, and then we dive into which gassy notes we're pulling out of it. So yeah, where grape exists on the berry spectrum in the way we talk about weed, because when you break into that fat nug of some blueberry, it ends up being something that might have smells of plum or those types of flavors, so that we can kind of categorize those into a similar family.
Exactly.
And the way we've laid these out is by very carefully stacking the categories and the individual notes to feed into the next.
Yes, this is some next level cannabis scent nerd shit. And I just think that one of my absolute fave categories would have to be gassy. And I'm glad you mentioned gassy, because we broke down gassy into 3 aromatic families: bakery, chem, and funk. And so bakery, what in the gassy category? Oh, that's kind of crazy. But if you really start to think about bakery smells, we're talking rye bread, we're talking chestnut, we're talking Play-Doh. These smells that would fall into a bakery scent category, really their overall umbrella would be defined as gassy. Now there's some other things in that category too, like in the funk we have the dirty socks, we have the musty basement. So we have some fun ones in there that are just like, you know, things that anyone can relate to that immediately evoke that smell in your mind. Like these scent notes are going to pull those scent memories immediately. But if you're just smelling a flower that's quote unquote gassy, and we want to say, oh, is it chem? No. Oh, it's funk. Okay. What kind of funk? Urine, specifically cat urine, is a scent note on here. Is it a sulfur, or is it a musty basement? And if you say musty basement, gassy people will either be like, oh, hell yeah, that's my jam. The mustier, the better. Or they're going to be like, ooh, no, I think for me, gassy is more like, a shoe polish or a WD-40. Right? So there's this amazing, it's literally pure beauty. This is like some straight up Picasso level smell identification. I'm sure you guys can hear it in my voice. I'm so stoked. There's nothing like this.
There really isn't. And in fact, we try to make up for the shortcomings of many other wheels that people have attempted to make in cannabis. Most of them start with a terpene company trying to sell terpenes, to be honest with you. But beyond that, they start with the terpenes that we're familiar with, usually the top 14, and then relate those to some scents you might get. I was already kind of talking about linalool being found in lavender. So we might say, oh, okay. Linalool is known to be calming. You can find it in lavender. And that's as basic as the wheel, or that's as complicated as the wheel gets. And we really try to zero in on just the sense you're going to get from cracking into this. And things like Chem 91 or those chem flavors are represented on this wheel, even though they might primarily be made up of thiols and other scents that aren't going to be present on a wheel of terpenes, because we're not just limiting ourselves to one type of aroma molecule. We're including everything, all of the senses, all of the sensory elements you get from tearing into actual flower.
Absolutely.
And we have just tortured ourselves tearing into smelling and smoking all this weed, you guys. It has been, tough.
Life is hard. Life is hard. I'm ripping one right now to calm my absolute excitement, to be honest, because this is just, I'm so proud of this sensory tool. I really am. And I think it's really going to do good in the cannabis world as we move forward as canisters and people.
Mm-hmm.
I love terpenes, and I love sitting on at a conference patio. I was at Grow Up in November, mm-hmm. and everyone's sitting on the smoking patio. It's the fenced off zone we're allowed to smoke in. So there's a ton of people there, and people are passing around flower, but also a lot of extracts. And as they're passing it around to all the nerds that showed up at the conference, it was so amazing for me to see how many people could smell, a concentrate or a flower and pick out the terpenes that were present? Like, that is a cool ass skill that I think is amazing for people in the industry to be able to pick out scent molecules. But when we're looking at the world of cannabis, it's so much more than myrcene or beta caryophyllene. It's so much more than this dominant molecule, this dominant aromatic. And also, it's not really relatable. So me holding a strain and saying, "Oh, smell this, the myrcene is fire," no one wants that,
Right. We don't identify wine flavors typically by the molecule responsible for that aroma. It's the grape. The grape is producing the flavor, so that's how we talk about it. And I think
Exactly.
cannabis is the same way, but things have gotten a little mixed up because we do want to talk about terpenes. We do want to talk about all of these different aroma agents that are affecting our experience in more ways than one. The cool thing about this is it just gives us like a more refined lexicon of language, so we don't have to use things like dank and fire, and we can get really down into it. So this is the orange peel or the pith or the juice, and really just dive into what is possible. And I think places, coffee roasters have been doing this for forever, where there's 3 to 6 major aroma notes or flavor notes on the front of the bag, and that's basically how you're purchasing. That's how you're making your purchasing decision. In Canada, especially, where you're saying you don't have an opportunity to crack the jar and get your nose in there, you have to find some other better way to communicate that. And it's also very limited in what kind of artwork you can use. So why not just use these basic sensory evaluations that typically, if I smell something, I'm getting overwhelming green apple, and I say that to the person next to me, even if they hadn't identified it yet, they go, "Oh, yes, green apple. Oh, dude, yeah." It's like you just have that moment of communication with somebody where your noses both detect the same thing and you can put a name to it. So you provide context where there was none, and then now there's a story to tell.
That's the magic moment. And, we did touch on this a little bit in another episode. I can't remember what it was called, but it was the one about how to smell better, how to be better at smelling.
Yes.
And we touched on
Nug vision in the weeds. Yes, something
Oh
along.
my gosh, yeah, and that is absolutely one of my favorite episodes that we've recorded. So if you guys haven't listened to that one, go check it out. I think it's really going to be a delightful companion to this episode and also to this project. But we talk about that, and we talk about how creating inviting descriptions is really the future of cannabis. And so smell is not going anywhere. And I was really thinking about this the other day because, from day one to day, whatever, 10,000 of smoking weed, you get a bag, you smell it, and you decide if you like it, and then you smoke it, right? Like, the smell moment is such a piece of cannabis culture. And to be able to now put these precision freaking terms, like, we've just advanced, we've taken ourselves to this next level when it comes to weed. And I'm just really excited for that, especially here, like you were saying, in Canada. We do not get to smell the product before we buy it. And we don't get the flashy packaging either that you impulse buy because it has a cool picture on it. We keep it real borderline pharmaceutical here. And it sucks because it's really a guessing game. And so I've noticed in the past couple months, a handful, maybe even less than a handful, of brands have started including sensory descriptions on their packaging. So whereas, last year we started seeing brands listing their terpenes, I think we've all come to realize that the average consumer doesn't relate to that information. It's hard to relate smells to the molecules unless it's something you're really, really keen on. And so seeing sensory descriptions on packaging has really been such a huge leap forward, in my opinion, for the industry here. Like, we really needed that. But I will say, I've noticed some shortcomings on some of those descriptions, because for me, if I'm seeing the word earthy, it ain't going to cut it anymore. It's just not going to cut it anymore, because earthy could be herbaceous or spicy, right? It could be fresh. And to me, fresh or herbaceous are very different earthy smells. And so I think that a tool like this really opens opportunities for people to get in on this new smell boom that's about to happen, where we're going to start seeing, in the same way where only one or two brands were putting terpenes on their packages, and now only one or two brands are putting sensory evaluations on their packaging, that's about to boom. That's going to be a huge boom. And being able to be that person is so cool. And having a tool to help you train to be able to give those descriptions. And I'm excited to see like the homies start to use this tool and really just bring some more dynamicism to their aromatic descriptions, because I love online cannabis reviews. I love seeing my internet friends, you know, my Insta homies posting their online reviews. Like, I dig it. I love the good pictures. I love the descriptions. You know, when we all follow people that do that, it's awesome.
Yes. Well, and you know what I've been loving lately? I'm doing a writing project that's had me digging into a lot of breeders' work and seed packs.
Oh, wow.
And so, you know, it brings me back to 2001, reading about, you know, boggle gum and the description of the yield and the flowering time and the flavor and aroma descriptions, which typically came from the breeder and were flowery and were, you know, a way to market your product. And it's great because it was, and still is in that world, like way more exciting and inviting than most dispensaries or even cultivators are even attempting. So I thought that was pretty interesting. You know, when you have these super high value, like seeds are a luxury product, can be $300 for 10 seeds. You do have to have a little razzmatazz in communicating to make sure that person feels like the value proposition is a good one.
And also that the end product is what they thought they were going to get,
Totally.
right? Like, you want the description to match the thing you're buying.
Yeah.
And so these scent notes, I'm so excited. These scent notes are just, we're going there. We're going there. This is so exciting for the cannabis industry. I honestly, more than anything, I can't actually believe we pulled it off, because this has just been going on for months.
Yes.
And months.
Everyone needs to know that this started as like Post-it notes that we were texting back to each other. Is this the right order? Is this the right order? Is this the right order? To a pretty rough looking wheel that Amanda laid out and like lovingly and just put so much heart into. And we would have calls where it's like, okay, we have to move this whole thing around. And it was like, okay, that's going to be stressful because it taxes my Photoshop skills. On to working with one of my favorite designers to finalize the wheel and lay it out in a very beautiful, clean, hang it up in your dispensary type poster way, to make it just hit on all the fronts. It's informative. It's new. It's comprehensive. And it just has like a really great look where you don't have to hide it when you're not using it.
Absolutely. And I think it's timely in that there are a lot of many luxury agricultural industries that have wheels that are comprehensive and that are actively used as tools to become. So when we look to wine and wine sommeliers, they have similar tools that they're using to hone their craft. And we look at coffee and we look at whiskey. These are all agricultural industries that have developed their own sommelier level standards based on wheels that people have lovingly crafted, who specialize in smell, who specialize in flavor in those industries. So it's like, it is cannabis. It's weed's day to shine.
Yes.
Because now weed has a wheel too. And this is a big step, but I feel like it's also a nice first step into the future of weed, which is, once we start to hone our skills and our ability to discover aromatics and flavors with specificity, we can now begin to look at terroir. And we can now begin to look at regional flavors and take this into the next step of the luxury agricultural cannabis industry, which is regional flavors, regional and grower specific too. Like, I know I've worked with growers who have a very specific terroir or flavor profile because of the soil they're using, because of the environment, right?
Or even because of their methodology, right? I know some cultivators just kill certain profiles, and it's what they like and what they've kind of like pushed their garden into the standards that they set for themselves and their SOPs and how they feed the plants and when they do. And then they get this banging Tropicana that you can smell orange rind from up the block. And it's like, yeah, great. We're getting everything there. We're getting the taste of the earth, the terroir. We're getting the touch of the gardener and the cultivator and what they're able to provide. And then even the cure on how well that was done, or if there's any defects. We have things on this wheel that are literally mold and literally, dried grass and things like that, where these are not pleasant smells you find in cannabis. But if you're grading herb all day, every day, you will come across these scents and marking them not so pleasant. Or this weed tastes like basil, brown grass, and yeast, most likely destined for distillate. Right? Go ahead. Yeah. Hey, somebody who's grading cannabis is going to say this one smells like green apple, passion fruit, and pineapple. It looks beautiful. Let's top tier this. So the more we kind of are able to grade it like an agricultural product and honor it in a way that somebody who's looking at it understands weed, then great. We're doing the whole industry a service by better allocating this weed to go where it needs to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was also just, struck with the thought of like, I typically grow mystery seeds, right? Like I'm kind of like, give them away, take them, grow the mystery seeds. And I think it's just going to be really fun this upcoming harvest season. I know we're a bit of a ways away, but it's almost seed popping time. And I'm really looking forward to having this because we do two types of grading on the farm. We do the first harvest grade, and then we do the post-harvest grade, right? So it's like after it's been cured for a few weeks, we go back in and we smell everything. But as we're harvesting, we also try to create aromatic profiles for the stuff in the moment to see what it's like, to see what really took off that year, because the terps are so fresh. And then, of course, they transform, they're changing. And so we reevaluate, but it's perfect for that. Like now we can really get into it. And then when you're looking at your notes from the year before, because, you're taking notes, we're grading everything. Oh, we really like this one. It's not always descriptive enough to remember, especially if you're growing like, 50 different types of weed. If you're really cultivating a variety of products, you want that specificity. You want to be able to make those notes so you really remember each strain, Of course, you're going to have your favorites and you're going to remember your favorites, but what about your mediums, your second favorites, your third favorites, right? Like we have to remember all of these strains as we move forward to know what we should keep growing or breed or cross with the next year. And so literally endless possibilities. And yeah, I don't know. Do you have any favorites on the wheel? Because like I have a couple faves where every time I see them, I kind of think, oh, that's a good one.
I mean, I really do love like almost half the wheel is earthy and gassy flavors. And when you think about like people who only just know weed to smell like weed. Mm-hmm. Oh, that smells like weed. That's like the whole quadrant that exists in, right? But then we get to dig into like these sweet candy dessert flavors. And I think those are kind of my favorite, where we get like even flavors like honey and banana that exist in the dessert area. That when I smell those, I think of, like, let's say honey bananas or something along those lines that have that crazy sweet but fruity smell. And mouth watering, it's that easy. How about yourself?
For me, it's like I'm really proud of some of our little moments. So like tomato leaf is one that to me as soon as you think of a smell of a tomato leaf, as a half Italian, that is a smell that is reminds me of so many moments in time. And even if you're just like, I grow really bad stuff here because I don't get a lot of sunlight. I live in an apartment. I have to grow on a balcony. It's in buckets. We don't get that much sun. So usually I don't get more than the leaves of the tomatoes. Fuck it, whatever. I just like to put my hands in the dirt. But tomato leaf is such a precise smell. And it is one you find in weed, but on the fly, without having anything to reference, I don't know that I would be able to pull that out. Even as someone who spends an insane amount of time thinking about, talking about, actually smelling things, that one just really stands out to me. Like, that's like a moment that feels like such a successful smell. That's like a really good one, So I would say tomato leaf has got to be one of my faves. Not necessarily to smoke, but to smell and to be able to pick that out. Holy shit. Like, imagine you're just whiffing a nug and it has this slight tomato leaf essence to it. And you said that out loud and everyone around you was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
That is exactly what it smells like. Like, that is the energy that we're going for with this thing here.
Right.
So that's definitely up there.
All of the cannabis tastings I've done have that moment where everyone is kind of like eyebrows raised. Oh, we're all on the same page about something. And I think that what's cool about this is it just makes that really easy to have those moments. Aha moment after another, especially because of how specific it gets.
Yeah.
And like the designer was saying, it's really built as a poster that pulls you in from the get-go, and you can go, oh, hey, yeah, there are these like 6 different categories with weed, or 5. And then when you start looking, you're like, oh yeah, you're right. There is a big difference between something that smells like a blueberry and something that smells like a pineapple, even though those are both fruity. And then getting a little deeper into the poster, you're looking at the individual aroma notes. So you just by like staring at this thing, you're being pulled into like educating yourself on like how these are categorized. Mm-hmm. And like you were saying, Amanda, the more you use it, the better you get at having these quick draw ready to go. Oh, tomato leaf. Oh yeah, blueberry. Oh, what is that? Huckleberry? Because my mind is primed to be smelling all of these things. And damn if that's not a dead ringer for a huckleberry. So I'm going to write it down.
Yeah. And then you're going to start to be able to pare things down too. So you can eliminate certain things and really start to find what you're actually smelling. I think what I love most about how it's been laid out, Victor did an outstanding job, because it's really nice to see our vision come to life here. But I think to me, what makes this so effective, we've broken down the most common word descriptors of cannabis smells into second groups. So the wheel has its center, which is like the common words, the ones we've been using: earthy, gassy, sweet, fruity. And then it breaks into the second section of the wheel, which each one has about 3, and we're calling them scent families. And so, for example, like we said with gassy, it's the bakery chem funk. With the sweet, it's floral candy dessert. So even if you're just starting out, you'll know it's sweet. You will know that just a person who exists in the world and can smell. You will know that something smells sweet. You will know that something smells citrus. And so then to be able to just take a little moment, that second waft, that moment of thought to think, is the sweet a flowery sweet or a candy sweet? And that even in itself is already elevating your descriptions and already taking your ability to smell things to the next level. So we're not saying you're just going to jump in and start picking out freaking berries and tomato leaves, but this is a really good start to breaking down these generic umbrella terms that really are not actually describing very much of the product or describing them effectively. So this second wheel, another aspect of detail that we agonized over What do we call these categories? How do we make these categories? And originally, you may recall, I think we started with 10.
Oh, yes.
And we had to move things around a lot because we really wanted it to make absolute perfect scent sense. So
Yes.
that was something we really took the time to find the perfect words to break down these categories into these smell families in a way that's very intuitive and very user friendly.
Yeah. And in a way that you can treat it like a wheel and look at the fruity flavors, which are opposite the gassy flavors, and think, okay, are these complementary? Do these exist in that same profile, or is there an absence of that? Because it's very helpful in communication to say this is berry, fruity, cereal, milky. There's no gas. So even saying that there's not an element of fruit to it, or there's no melon in this at all, gives you a really good idea on the other flavors that are there.
Yeah. And I think, fruity is another good example. I mean, every category is a good example. So I think
Better be after all of this,
that's our quiz of the day. Is that going to be that? But I love fruity weed. I really do. Any fruit, obsessed. Love fruity strains. And fruity is broken down into families of berry, orchard, and tropical. And when you really just take a minute and think about it, there's a big difference between berry and tropical. And again, this is why the term fruity just doesn't work. It just doesn't cut it because there's too many options, even in those three. If you can narrow it down to one of those three, you're already taking your description to the level it needs to be for a product that has so many flavor options and so many smell options. So these little moments are going to be so helpful for people to really hone in on those aromatic notes, hone in on those families, and start to create vibrant descriptions of this thing that we're all freaking obsessed with. It's fucking weed. We love it. So this is how we're going to get there. And I'm just staring at it lovingly. I don't know. It's right here in front of me. I wish that it was in front of all of you. I hope that people that are listening, by the time you hear this, it will be out in the world and it will be available for you to get your hands on. And so you can join the party. And I would say, re-listen to this episode so you can be just as enthusiastic as we are, but also check out that episode I referenced earlier on how to smell better, because we go into insane detail on perfumery. And we talk about how in perfumery, no one ever describes, Chanel No. 5 as being rich in aldehydes. No, we use the example. Okay, some people might, and we actually do have an episode where we talk about that mitten cologne, the warm mitten. So, okay, some people do, not everyone. So that's a really good one because we also talk about techniques to find smells. And that episode was created well before this was ready, right? And so that episode was designed to help you without this tool. And now thinking I might even go back and listen to that one again, because I think it really is a nice meshing of these two things that we've been trying to help people with, which is how to get really excited about smell and how to smell better.
Yeah, we're going to make sure to roll this out with, at the very least, a fairly low-cost digital download for everyone. So if the print-on-demand solution is not quite ready yet, and we haven't even found like a printer that we love, because we really want these to be wall quality, hang them up, put them in a frame, put them in the dispensary. But also for our folks who are working in the industry and need this tool to really up your value, go ahead. You can go to the website, intelligenceproject.com, download your PDF there, and get started with that PDF and that episode we just talked about, which is completely free. You've now set yourself up in the top 1% of sensory evaluators for cannabis just by doing those two things and putting into practice a little bit. So use that to take your bud tender job and turn it into a manager job, or take your job schlepping pounds around into a full-on wholesale position, because even graphic designers are going to be using these descriptors on packaging that will be printed by the thousands. And you might as well be the one to step in and say, hey, let me get my nose on these latest batches and let's get these things correct so people know what they're getting.
Absolutely. And in exciting news this week, next weekend, which is the 24th to the 26th.
Just the dates.
Yeah, it's the March 24th to 26th, 2023. I wish it was I just got a tinge.
Full disclosure, I could not get my passport together in time. It is in process right now. So I'm going to miss this, but Amanda will be there representing the team. Tell everyone about it. And if you're local-ish to the area, I really hope you'll be there.
So a couple things are happening that weekend. Friday is actually the Influencer Award ceremony. We are both hopeful that we won, but we are nonetheless honored to have been nominated in such a prestigious award category as Cannabis Influencer Podcast. Like that's awesome. Like, we work so hard to put these episodes together. And so to be nominated and a finalist in that category was very cool. And we're alongside some really, really killer content creators. So I will be there Friday. I'm going to have some Smoking Spot stickers, and we're going to be there for the award ceremony. So if you're a fan of the show, come check it out. We're going to cheer for whoever wins, no matter what.
Flip a little jar of whatever you're smoking on.
Yeah, exactly. And then additionally to that, what's so exciting about this weekend is that I will be teaching not one, but 2 seminars called Smell is Everything. And I will be bringing this wheel to show you guys how to use it in the context of grading, tasting, and testing cannabis, and how to create sensory descriptions. So we're going to go into all kinds of fun facts about smell. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring copies of the wheel. I'm going to have it on hopefully the big projector if I can figure out how to do that. And so we're actually going to have probably an hour-long seminar. I'm going to call it a masterclass on the first most epic as fuck cannabis aroma wheel. We're making history at Can Expo, and it is in Toronto. So I'm really looking forward to that. Plus, I would love to have some of our listeners in the audience. Clearly, you just love the sound of my voice, so you get to listen to it in person.
We're here for it.
And sadly, Ryan can't come.
No, I won't be there, but I'll be there in spirit and maybe possibly on a screen. We're going to see how we can work that out. But if you can't make it to that one, there'll be others here in the States. We're planning things for April and May right now. Send all opportunities our way, especially after you are just bowled over by the wheel. And I think that's it, Amanda. Send them to the website. Send them to the Can Expo. Where can we find you if we're not doing those things?
Okay, so my Insta is at emerald.temple.living.
Cool. You can find me over at the Loud 100. You can find us both at the.smoking spot. All of this on Instagram and basically all of the other channels and platforms. Easy to get a hold of us. We hope to see you guys soon, and we hope to hear your impressions on the wheel. If you love it, if you hate it, if we missed your favorite aroma scent, it made the cutting room floor, maybe it's buttery popcorn, then that's okay. Shout at us. There will, who knows, be a version 2 someday where we can say, oh yeah, I really should have added dog fur in there, or whatever we missed, something. Someone's going to hit me with something that I go, oh, we would have included that.
You know what? I cannot imagine a smell that we missed, but I'm not going to pose it as a challenge.
I am.
We're thorough. This was thorough as fuck.
Yeah, no, it was. And the amount of hours mean that you have to buy a wheel. You have to, because we're starving over here. Just not literally, but for attention. So send it our way.
Yes. And thanks to all of our listeners and supporters. You guys are awesome.
Yeah. Give us all the stars, and we'll be in touch. We'll be back next week for even more about our favorite plant.
Said no matter what kind of pain and anguish life may bring you, Oh, smoke it up, hold it down, and don't ever stop. Well, you can always find your smoking spot. Yeah, you can always find a smoking spot.